Hello there, people of the current age. My name is Albert Finches, the type of man currently running an experiment on my cast of characters. Unawares, mind you, for a role they'll never get. And I've taken a break from my simple schedule of riotous bigotry to investigate the loop. In recent years, it's come to my distinct attention that you're all falling for the ruse. The engineered hatred that damn well has got you all moronic and mindless, but with good intentions. My involvement began one lazy afternoon watching this fascinating actor who had the great dishonour of playing a black man, playing a gay man, playing a white man on Doctor Who, a British cultural exchange, which, looking at it today, says more than it should. I found him quite engaging as an actor, genuinely dedicated and amorous, with a movement that Broadway darlings would call quaint yet wonderfully outrageous. And here we were despising every single second of it for all sorts of reasons. And then it hit me, while an actor busted into my room reciting a scene of folly to earn a scene of dignity, that it's all been engineered so. Our hatred feeds the loop towards our own obscurity. Therefore, is it engineered hatred for the actor, his race, the fictional story itself, or the industry that's being impressed upon us?
10 bets wager it'll all foolishly boil down to race, and of course a couple of jabs at the actor for good measure. Brace yourselves, impudence, as we try to unravel this knot. Before we begin, I'm reminded of George Orwell's ravings on maintaining the dignity of language, as that further maintains the dignity of those who speak it. For this reason alone, I have marooned myself on the island of making every sentence far too complicated for modern speech or understanding. But soldier on we must if we're ever to escape the loop.
Pray for me.
A brief history is in order. The question of engineered hatred still lies in doubt by many who've convinced themselves of their misguided intentions. But let us silence the cackle and face the facts of life. Since the inception of film, the witch's brew has been churning with identities that prove it was never a genuine form of art. Now, those are mighty words, but think on it for a moment. Of all forms of art that exists today, this is the one most laden with propaganda and the blatant unwillingness to improve itself. Find an artist in every field, and they are constantly bettering the craft, the understanding of it, and the love for it. But film, education, medicine, and science have definitely lost all these qualities, and yet it has become far too powerful. A sculptor, without even thinking, can leave some imagination in your hands as to your interpretation of their piece. Beautiful, maybe? Unsightly, you'd think? Or what madness has captured these men to make all their statues naked? If it's your first time in Florence, that is. The rest of us have grown quite used to hanging dongs. We rather admire them. And we all find ourselves admiring sculptures from across the world, regardless of what hands molded them. Very little in terms of propaganda can be passed through true art. At best, you'd think, wow, I really need to know who these Greek gods are. Or definitely Banksy was right. We're all free-falling, headed where nowhere is. Quite arousing. Unless they start making statues of individuals, then we're all talking gibberish. But film, be it animation or otherwise, or, as the often confused defenders of the word literally will argue, any fiction but with real people is soaked full of propaganda. You can't escape it momentarily like in other art forms, which is the deliberate, systematic spreading of information, ideas or rumours, whether true or false, designed to influence public opinion. I had to Google that.
Whitewashing as culture started on an ordinary Tuesday when a producer said, "Oh my, already the streets are filled with all sorts of stories and fables, but it appears our audience finds them duller by the day. What can we do to make their every attention focused on us, the stage, and our latest directorial masterpiece?" Oh, I know, of course, oh la la, how simple! Just increase the drama that pins their morals and feeds into all sorts of guilty pleasure.
And there's nothing more dramatically guilt-pleasuring than, well, blackface. And, as you would imagine, the turnout was in the hundreds. The concept of using drama or exaggeration in storytelling became a culture all its own. The culture of feeding the lowest instinct in order to sell the most seats in the theatre, even if it meant degrading entire peoples, especially the people who watched this insanity and celebrated it. And today, the culture lives on. What can rile up or even put to sleep your instincts to keep you clicking? Well, why don't we blackface the whiteface? Yup, pure genius. Especially as many so-called artists of today tap back into the well-known spring of outrage to do the same in the name of standing above the crowd and saying, yes, this way of thinking was idiotic. Or, wait. Apologies. They appear to be self-aware, so it is in fact saying, yes, we are idiots, too. I believe, though I will need further clarity on just how self-aware they are. It all begins with inventing a persona and then convincing the public that it's real. Then that public becomes trapped inside it, with the stereotypes created being redefined again and again in every age until it is embedded into their very psyche. The result is, my conscious friends, teaching hatred that lasts generations. Hatred that can be tapped into whenever anyone asks again, how can we keep them watching? And now that the parameters of action and reaction are set, the world boils in its own confusion, wherein no side ever discovers the truth of existence. But why, you might ask me? Why? Well, good man, I'll tell you. It is rather simple, actually. To make more money, of course. A frightening thought indeed, because if we could make more money by destroying the world, by golly, by jingo, we will. Facts and truths be damned. A line I so famously yelled at my bespoke shoemaker, who refused the application of crocodile skin for reasons of developing a heart. Hollywood is yet to suffer this affliction, which is why most of their so-called inclusion is rather lacking at best, seeing as true inclusion could muddy the waters of a culture that is already minting them lots of money. Consider this article by a man named Christopher Wilson, who presents an interesting thought. What if you watched only the lines in E.T. or the entire Harry Potter series that were spoken by people of colour? You might realise two things. First, it doesn't take long. Second, it leaves you with questions. Now, let me read off some notes for you because I'm starting to feel a bit peckish at the moment to keep lingering on my own thoughts. Cassandra, my chef, has been gone a long while. I did warn her that if the oysters weren't fresh, she'd better dive in the ocean herself. And herein lies the money loop. Amusingly, it goes both ways, pun intended for the doctor. For instance, I've heard that an entire festival was shut down because of the black man. I know the irony of a British man saying this is appalling, so I'll tread lightly, but it's acting as one is depicted in media without being aware of it. Second, the white man against people of colour has shot itself through the moon. How dare they ruin my perfectly good story about a British man who can travel through time, doctoring the who of history, they say. Let white be white and black be black. They'll shout from the rooftops if need be. Not even with tea can that work, my secretary mumbled at me once when she offered a milkshake hoping it would meet my demands. Poor girl, I threw it out the window. But she was right. Yet we, the intelligent apes we pretend to be, cannot differentiate between the carrot and the stick. If you understood that, please leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe, my precious darlings. And here is where the engineered hatred comes in. When something is so obviously presented to arouse hatred among the various personas so as to make more drama, it is as calculated at evil as you can get, and they made this and gave it an Oscar. We should just be grateful there are things they are not interested in. The newest rages and rants are all courtesy of the boy who lived, whom we're now all wishing he didn't. The one thing that you all don't realise is that it's all fictitious. This isn't really what life was meant to be like. It's all been imagined with an agenda from our masters, be who they will, telling us how to think and act. I know God has a thing or two to say about it. It must all be maddening. But believe it or not, there are even personas for entire countries and how they should act. Ask a proper Japanese lass how nice the weather is, and you'd be breaking a cultural norm. Maybe not the weather, but those pants and how she looks in them, which did not go well. Everyone in the train was embarrassed for everyone else. That was not a lovely day. But you understand, don't you? Don't you? I bet you don't. Oh, how I pity the modern age.
Although this man seems to understand.
It's all about who has the power, he says, and who has access to the means of production. If one group is still controlling the money in Hollywood, then they're also going to influence what stories Hollywood tells. We craft stories in our own image, after our likeness, whether they be poisonous or pleasant baubles, and we now know that Hollywood's been rather nutty since its inception.
History is written by the vanquished. No, wait, that's not right. History is written by the conquerors, and there's been plenty of conquering through the ages, so much so that we may not be certain of the simplest of things. The true history of Africa and the world itself is really up to the imagination of the next taskmasters. Carrot and stick, my friends. And whether it be God, chance, or madness, it's all up to your interpretation as well. For now, until God has the final word, of course.
But often, no great power touches the world stage without some cost to pay. Balzac, in The Comedy of Humanity, wrote that the secret of great fortunes without apparent cause is a crime forgotten because it was properly done. Now, interpret that as you will, both you pessimists and narcissists, knowing full well that we all suffer alike, both black and white. Through poverty, depression and the like. If you look hard enough, you'll realise, my goodness, there are no peoples, there's only personas, which represent nothing of the truth of life. The world, my conscious friends, is not as black and white as it would appear. Wait, oh damn, oh dear, I've confused myself again. The world is grey, but I'm talking about races that they're not black and, oh well, I'll have to start again.
Money creates racial categorizations to enforce slavery, and in all my years as a director of film, I have yet to meet someone who so naturally embodies the depictions of the hated or even loved races as they are presented in their wildest forms on the screen. Deep down, we know we're all better than the idiots we see on the telly, the fictional ones I mean, the real ones is up to debate. At least it was, until now. Seeing as the eventual outcome of consumption is becoming the thing you consume, even the hated depictions have morphed into real-life culture. Let me drop in another quote. The United States systematically disrupted black culture by reducing them to specific caricatures and promoting those as the only truth with the goal of oppression. And oppressed they've been. And today, all people are so strongly on their defense in various camps that they've taken on those attributes, unawares, the attributes of both the oppressor and oppressed. I currently see race divides as an idea that blinds us to the knowledge possible among the varied and diverse ways of thought. We had pots of all sorts, but now our pots bear only one thought. And sadly, Hollywood is a business first. Its goal is to make a profit, and therefore nothing else matters, which means all our pots will be pointless. With the use of these personas, the social ladder, and a healthy dose of propaganda, they can guarantee their next salary. Be it from inspiring outrage by poking at the lesser, or inspiring patronage by praising the betters. To them, it doesn't matter either way. It's why I have two secretaries, one that I praise and one that I shame, just so that I can know who will do what work faster.
So now the question is, who are we really? I'm in a massive office scribbling this. The desk is made from precious wood and curved beautifully. I insisted on the purchase. My chair cradles my balls lovingly. And yet even I wonder, who are we really?
If we can so easily take a fictional story and change the sex and race of the characters on a whim, was the original a distortion of reality already?
Will Snape seem unheroic now, knowing how unheroic black people have been portrayed in films? Or will it make black people seem heroic? Is all our fascination with storytelling pointless? Who are we really?
Why not have Dumbledore as the black guy? Everyone already knows about magical Negroes. It would have made sense. Plus it would be pretty funny. But no, that would have disrupted the social ladder of it all. I guess Snape will be yet another black guy who's going to die first in a horror because everyone judged him too quickly.
Can the Doctor only be a white man, or woman, or gay, or black? Is that the point of the story? Will James Bond be played by an Asian man? Why wasn't Harry Potter a black girl? I mean, that would have hit the unwanted child under the wardrobe role even better. And Hermione should be Asian. Isn't that what film culture has taught me? Her answering all the questions would have made more sense. What if Moana was played by a redhead? Goodness, that would cross all cultural boundaries, huh? But it won't make a lick of sense. Then why are they doing it? To make people fit in with a story they already did in their own way. Doesn't that mean the story has no meaning? What does it mean if it doesn't mean anything? Who are we really? Because while it's not everyone's cup of tea, I bet some chaps really loved this strange story of a doctor called Who. I bet others found some kinship with the Snape who was a professor. And I bet they appreciate the manner in which these stories got to them in the first place.
And sadly, there is this lingering feeling that those stories were only popular to begin with because they were pre-tailored for a white audience, which means there is a sickening chance that all popular things in the world today are not honest depictions of the stuff we should really admire. What if stories never mattered, but for every sordid thing they've inspired in us? Okay, that's probably reaching too far. And I, for one, don't want to be a doomsday narcissist, so I will acquiesce and say that only the popular stories may have this glaring error, and that there are still great gems out there. And I, for one, really hope James Bond will be played by a Jamaican.
I've realised this madness now, as I've finished my 50th inconsiderate play. Martin Smith, the editor, is waiting to review it so he can finally, as he says, get this shite out. It hit me then, as he barked out of the room, that it was never about telling a good story, or passing on a moral thought, an honourable idea, a clever muse, but capturing an audience, enslaving it to the whims of the storyteller.
If I were in the writer's room, I'd say if we aim to bridge the gap we created, why not create a new legacy character on par with the Doctor or his adversaries if need be? Someone who will completely shake the foundation of the story and inspire empathy, enjoyment, and progress in the story. But how? Will quip in another writer, tears nearly rolling down his cheeks. I'd say, of all the stories that have ever been written by far greater writers than us, both black and white, we could find one that would fit and tell it. Oh, so actually hire a writer with no agenda and nothing to gain, simply to tell a good moral story.
Yes, I'd say. The wealth of stories written when characters could still have faults or thoughts is truly endless. But he'll mumble and lean in closer. You are aware of the politics of the time, right? Oh yes, I'll agree, as I already have. The dumber the better, until it all comes crashing down. To which we might high-five, as I often get the last word, and we'd settle silently on our 5th bottle of wine while our wives droned on about this or other. Identity is lost, my conscious friends, and there is no one going to help you find it but yourself, and you're not yourself. As I end, I'm obliged to point out that these people aren't idiots. I'm not an idiot. I've got people running all over the place fulfilling my whims. The lead actress just this morning bought me a first-class ticket to the destination of my choosing. I told her I don't take gifts from strangers. She's in the rehearsal theatre right now, glaring at the cameraman. Film is no longer true art, because it builds nothing and offers nothing today. It only traps the mind in more heightened drama that stopped making sense 50 years ago. New caricatures of dull mindlessness are the result in society. Unless you're patient and pull away from what's popular to find the obscure and morally driven artists of our day, few and far and clouded as they've become, there's honestly nothing worth watching. Oh, well, Dorothy, my second secretary, is knocking on the door. I'll have to leave you. I ordered a triple ristretto oat milk cortado, half calf, at exactly 138 degrees, stirred counterclockwise 7 times, just for the fun of it. So, yes, indeed, this is all engineered hatred, to keep you watching. As to how self-aware the industry is, lies solely on what new thought processes they'd like you to stop having, or start having if it favours the bottom line. Oh, Salgook of the netherworlds, keep the television bleak and charmless, for it takes talent to make something otherwise. But watch they must.
And now you can all kiss closure.